Civilization VII was supposed to be the next great step in one of gaming's most enduring franchises. But as we sit here in 2025, Civilization VII stands as one of the most polarizing entries in strategy gaming history. This isn't a disaster story. Civilization VII didn't crash and burn. It didn't vanish from Steam charts or go completely unplayed. What happened instead was more complicated. The game that was meant to reinvent civilization found itself caught between innovation and identity, between what fans expected and what the developers envisioned. When it released, Civilization VII immediately divided its audience. On paper, it had some remarkable ideas. Instead of playing a single civilization from the dawn of history to the space age, you now evolve through three major eras: antiquity, exploration, and modern, changing your civ's traits and even its culture each time. The concept was fresh and ambitious. It promised replayability, historical depth, and the chance to shape your nation's legacy through shifting ages. But in practice, that very system fractured what made Civilization feel grounded. Players no longer felt like they were guiding a single culture through time. They were managing abstract bonuses, swapping identities every few hours of gameplay. The emotional connection to a nation, the pride of seeing Egypt, Rome, or Japan endure for thousands of years, disappeared. The result was a game that felt mechanically dynamic but emotionally empty. The so-called legacy paths became one of its biggest design burdens. They were intended to provide clear goals and rewards across ages, but instead they boxed the player into rigid choices that made the experience feel repetitive. Firaxis later added options to disable or customize these systems, but the underlying issue remained. The core structure of Civilization VII didn't know what it wanted to be. For many longtime fans, the disappointment ran deeper than systems. Civilization VII streamlined almost every layer of its predecessor in the name of accessibility, and in doing so, removed much of the series' strategic texture. Builders, one of the most iconic units in Civilization history, were completely removed. Players could no longer decide when or where to improve tiles. The game automated it based on population growth. You couldn't chop forests for production or buy new tiles with gold. Governors and great people were gone. Diplomacy was simplified to the point of being cosmetic. In trying to reduce micromanagement, the developers accidentally removed agency. The game ran smoothly, but it often felt like the player was watching it happen rather than steering it. One reviewer summed it up bluntly. Civilization VII optimized the fun out of the experience. Each turn offered fewer meaningful decisions, and once the novelty of the new systems faded, the mid-game turned into a long stretch of clicking next turn and waiting for something to happen. Even visually, the game struggled to find its identity. The interface, redesigned to work equally well on PC and consoles, was widely criticized for being sterile and unreadable. Everything was gray, flat, and stripped of the color-coded clarity that made Civilization VI's districts so intuitive. City layouts became visually indistinguishable blobs of buildings, removing the satisfying readability that used to make each empire feel unique at a glance. On top of that, the launch was burdened by aggressive monetization. Selling a $60 base game alongside another $60 of Day 1 DLC felt insulting for a product that clearly wasn't finished. Many players described it as paying for a half-baked cake with an optional topping. The backlash was immediate, and even some devoted content creators called the business model disgusting. But if Civilization VII's launch was a misfire, its post-launch evolution has been something of a redemption story. Firaxis didn't abandon it. In fact, the updates that rolled out across 2024 and into 2025 gradually reshaped the game into something much more cohesive. The biggest step forward came with Update 1.2.5, the so-called factory reset patch that landed in October 2025. That update fundamentally rebalanced the entire experience. Map generation, one of the most common complaints, was completely overhauled. The predictable rectangular continents were replaced with more organic, less symmetrical layouts. New map types like continents and islands and Pangaea and islands finally made exploration exciting again. For the first time, every new game felt visually distinct. The interface also saw major improvements. Text readability, resource icons, and placement indicators were rebuilt from the ground up. Players could finally see exactly what bonuses they were getting from buildings, districts, and terrain, something the original release completely obscured. The production and growth menus became transparent and functional. It wasn't perfect, but it was a clear step toward the readability that players had been asking for since launch. The city-state system was expanded and diversified with 2 new categories: diplomatic and expansionist. These offered bonuses centered on influence, happiness, and settlement growth, addressing long-standing imbalances between Civ types. More importantly, the entire game underwent what Firaxis called a strategic balance pass. Percentage-based yield stacking, the kind of snowballing bonuses that let skilled players reach absurd output levels, was removed. In its place came fixed numerical yields, smaller but more predictable. The goal was to make growth feel earned rather than exponential, and to restore the value of decision-making over pure optimization. Economy and expansion were also reworked. Building costs now scale with the size of your empire, discouraging endless sprawl and rewarding players who focus on fewer, more developed cities. Gold, once so abundant that you could buy everything you needed, became scarce again as maintenance costs increased. The intent was to slow the pace and make resource management meaningful, a change that longtime players largely welcomed. Leaders and civilizations received similar attention. Characters like Napoleon were completely redesigned, giving them distinctive, flavorful mechanics. Overpowered nations such as the Abbasid were scaled back to fit within the new balance framework. For the first time since launch, Civilization VII began to feel like a strategy game that respected the player's intelligence again. Still, the deeper question lingers. What is Civilization VII trying to be? Even after a year of updates, the game struggles with its identity. Its age-based evolution system, though improved, continues to divide the community. Some players love the variety, others miss the continuity of guiding one culture through history. The design sits uneasily between the accessible, simplified systems of a console-friendly strategy game and the complex simulation that longtime fans expect from a PC classic. In many ways, Civilization VII has been haunted by its own history. The franchise's past success created expectations that no reboot could easily meet. Civilization V perfected the hex grid foundation. Civilization VI expanded it with districts and layers of specialization. Civilization VII tried to reinvent the formula, and found itself breaking too much of what made it work. It's a legacy problem in more ways than one. Some critics have argued that Civilization VII should have launched in early access. That label would have set the right expectations and signaled that the game was still evolving. Instead, players paid full price for something that felt unfinished, then became de facto beta testers as the design changed month by month. The irony is that 2 years later, Civilization VII has essentially turned into an early access success story, just without the honesty of the label. As of 2025, the game is in a far better place. The player base has stabilized. The community is cautiously optimistic. The updates have added depth, personality, and balance that were completely missing at launch. And while it may never reach the lasting brilliance of its predecessors, it's no longer the disappointment many feared it would remain. Looking back, Civilization VII's failure wasn't a single mistake. It was a collision of ambitions. Firaxis tried to design a civilization for a new audience, one that would work on every platform and appeal to casual players, but in the process, it forgot what made the series special: the sense of ownership, identity, and gradual mastery. By flattening its systems, the developers made a smoother game, but a less human one. Today, it shows that even a beloved series can lose its way when it tries too hard to reinvent itself. But it also proves that with time, transparency, and genuine effort, a broken idea can be reshaped into something playable, even respectable. Firaxis has shown a willingness to listen and to rebuild. Maybe that's fitting for a game about civilizations. Every empire rises, stumbles, and rebuilds. Civilization VII might never become the masterpiece it wanted to be, but it has learned, adapted, and survived. And in a genre defined by long timelines, that might be the most civilization thing of all.